Think bulking fast is the quickest way to your dream physique? Think again. And I get why you do think that, by the way, because I did too. You're gonna fill out your shirts faster, you'll gain pounds on your favorite list fast, and so this must mean you're gaining muscle faster. But this is actually the very thing that takes results you could have otherwise seen in 2 years and turns it into 5 years or more. The quickest way to your ideal physique isn't rushing. It's a strategic, steady approach. I know it's not the advice you want to hear, just like skipping calves isn't a big deal is what you'd want to hear. But the truth, what you want to hear is usually just wishful thinking. I drove my head into the wall making this classic mistake of trying to go too fast for my first 7 years. When I finally understood and mastered the right way to bulk and cut, and how to manage those cycles, I saw more results from years 7 to 8 than I did all the years before combined. So unless you enjoy seeing worse fucking results, listen up and let's break it down. Let's dive into cutting first, because let's be honest, it's usually the least enjoyable part of the process. Although ladies might disagree with me there. We're going to need to understand and develop the skill of cutting down to 8 to 10% body fat, and women that's 18 to 20% properly, or else what is the bulk even really for? These days, aggressive mini cutting is on the rise. It's become a common problem, I believe, because people actually think it's a shortcut or a preferred method of doing it. And it is for someone more experienced who's been tracking everything and staying in a well-fed state for years. Otherwise, cutting is almost always a guaranteed ticket to binging cycle, massive diet fatigue, and rebounds where you don't look or feel good. Because on top of all of this, you're probably carrying more fat than you initially think. Most importantly, trying to speedrun a proper cut means you're not going to learn how to sustain performance, energy, manage diet fatigue properly, so you can keep all of the muscle you've built and sustain the low level of body fat simultaneously. Make no mistake about it, cutting and getting ripped is a skill. The best way to acquire it is by aiming and achieving 0.5 to 1% body weight loss weekly. Along the way, you're going to have to optimize food quality continuously to avoid hunger, learn when to introduce refeeds, understand how and when to change your eating windows or meal timing, how to deal with strength loss in the gym, and cultivate the right mindset of what it feels like to be a true 8 to 10% body fat without demolishing your hormones. And you're probably thinking, but John, you said bulk slow and cut fast. And indeed I did, my incredibly astute subscriber, who has an IQ of at least 130, obviously, as that's the only type of person that watches my amazing content. And as I was saying, yes, we cut fast, but not because we lose weight or fat very quickly, but rather because we just don't ever have all that much fat to lose ever again. And this can only happen if we bulk properly. You see, at the end of a proper bulk, regardless of how long it is, if you only need to shred 20 pounds, that cut's not going to take nearly as long as opposed to most people's cuts that end up being fucking 8 months because they thought they only needed to drop 20 pounds, but really they needed to drop 50 because they went too far on the bulk. That's the problem. So hopefully you're seeing how this ties together here. It starts with gaining the skill of cutting properly. We have to get that out of the way first, which usually should only need one solid standard cut where you get ripped, regardless of how small you feel, and then you just never get fucking fat again. So how do you keep all of the fat at bay? By mastering the modern day lean bulk. And what does that bulk look like? Well, based on the latest data and my experience coaching hundreds to success, here's the blueprint. After a proper accelerated reverse or recovery diet from getting ripped, you'll now aim for a 5 to 10% calorie surplus over time. This is in an attempt to gain roughly 0.25 to 0.75 pounds per week on average across the span of the entire bulk. Now, this does not mean you should gain within this range every single week linearly, because muscle growth can't really be precise or happen precisely linearly, but fat gain can be pretty damn linear if you're going way too fast. So it means that over the course of the several month bulk, the average total rate of weight gain should probably not exceed 0.75 pounds weekly, and ideally a decent amount less the more advanced you get. Going faster than this doesn't do anything to force faster growth, but the real issue is that it makes you think that it does. And I can't tell you how many times I get the messages in my comments talking about, man, I realized I fucked up the bulk when it was too late. Yes, better slow and steady. And even if you go too slow to where there's a minimal weight gain for a bit, that's totally fine. You can build muscle even at a maintenance, as even an advanced trainee, if you can check all the other boxes. If you go slightly too slow, you can simply extend the total time in a well-fed state, which I don't think too many people would complain about. And ultimately, you should have a stop loss in place. A stop loss, as I'm referring to it as, means to know when it's time to reel in the calories and slow down, or else the cut's going to be painful. For example, I personally set a 35-inch waist as the danger zone, and the moment that I'm getting close, I start slowing down. As a result, after gaining 17 pounds across the last 12 months, my waist has only gone up 1.5 inches. and it's at 33.5 inches, which is pretty damn good for a peak bulk, if you ask me, and compared to my previous ones. Oh yeah, by the way, this is all assuming and facilitated by if you're tracking your key metrics. Body weight daily, obviously, getting your weekly averages, tracking measurements, visual progress monthly, and tracking training and nutrition daily. So on a proper bulk, the goal isn't weekly weight gain, it's maximizing performance. That is a big difference. It's the very mindset of gaining weight every single week and treating things like a cut relating to the scale that's gonna fuck you up. Building muscle takes time. It's much harder than losing fat. Your mindset must change and be more performance focused. Everything you do should be to maximize every training session in which you are pushing to gain reps or load on as much as you can. I'm not going to dive into the deeper details of nutrition composition on the bulk or other key lessons, as my last two videos actually delve deeper into both of those things, so I highly recommend that you check those out as well. Now, when you do a bulk properly, it can look somewhat like mine has looked so far this time, starting at around 196 pounds, pretty lean, and now 17 pounds gained 12 months later, and as you can see, still staying lean. Now, 12 months in, since I haven't flown overboard and since I haven't prioritized the scale instead of prioritizing training, I can now extend my time in a well-fed state should I so choose, and that's probably going to happen. Having the ability to reasonably extend your time bulking because you're still lean enough to look good, your training is flying, and you haven't gotten to an unproductive level of body fat is a massive win. Oh, speaking of body fat percentage, I'm getting to a point where I understand or believe that when doing all this correctly, it's probably not a good idea to get to above 20% body fat as a guy, and even getting around 20% is quite high, or even 28% as a woman. If I had to choose, it probably makes the most sense to hang around 15 to 17% body fat for most guys, or somewhere between 25 and 27% as most women, as far as the peak end of your bulk, to stay productive and make sure that we don't need any aggressive mini cuts along the way, which is something that I basically never recommend anybody do anyways, other than advanced trainees for special situations. And we want to make sure that we can cut fast to a low level of body fat to look absolutely sick without all that much pain. For example, at this rate for me, the next goal is to push another 7 pounds or so in the next 6 months, and that would total about 21 pounds gained in the last 18 months, getting me up to around 220 pounds. From here, it's absolutely reasonable to set a goal of cutting down 15 to 20 pounds, which would get me very close to my weight at the end of last cut, but I should be significantly leaner, assuming I put on at least 4 pounds of pure muscle during this time, which is highly likely given several factors. But since I know that we are always fatter than we think we are, and we have to factor in food volume, water, glycogen, etc., then I do my best to undershoot my cutting expectations, as I believe everybody should. Hope for the best, prepare for the worst. Also, keep in mind, each time we cut, we build off the skill we had last time, and we can avoid most of the downsides. Each time we get better at that, the biggest one being sheer total amount we have to cut. Losing 20 pounds at a rate of 1.5 pounds a week, average dead is about 3 months. But there's two things to understand. Number one, 12 weeks compared to 72 weeks of a proper lean bulk is obviously a short period of time. But even better is the fact that if we don't have much to lose due to bulking slowly and properly, you can afford to go slightly faster, saving 2 pounds per week, or perhaps even faster yet, as the less time cutting, the less muscle loss is likely to occur. Combined with the fact that your skill and understanding of cutting will improve over time, you will have built more mass and a few other reasons. This means that your cut could theoretically get shorter to a point where you can lean bulk for several months and get diced in just a couple. Now, there is one last key thing I have to emphasize here, because after this entire explanation, it might come off as though you should actually avoid fat gain as best as possible during your bulk. And that is not the case. Fat gain is inevitable to maximize muscle growth and performance, but you just have to reset your expectations and start the bulk in the right spot. If you start the bulk lean enough, as I recommend, then you could have a range of 6 to 10% body fat you can gain without going too far over. But the nature of staying in that right spot, i.e. very lean, means trying to stay at that super low body fat level could sabotage your results for the first several months of the bulk, as it's not going to be as productive for most people. And this is why executing accelerated reverse or recovery diets are key after your cut, depending on how lean you get, and prepare to gain some fat along the way. So long as you stay below the stop loss you set at the beginning, which include things like perhaps waist measurement, say 3 inches above your starting point, or certain body fat percentages I outlined earlier, then you're going to be okay to have some fat come on during that process. Do not fear fat gain. Just be aware of gaining too much of it. That's all I'm saying. Getting around 10 to 15% is probably more productive for recovery, feeling well fed, and hormones anyways, and you'll still look good here. Avoid the unrealistic expectation of wanting to stay ripped for way too long or year round, especially if you feel serious cravings of any sort or binging episodes happen, as these are indications your hormones could probably be at a more optimized level, i.e., just get more food in your system. In the end, by understanding the one-time cut to get truly lean, acquiring the skill of doing so and understanding it, and then never getting fat again, because you execute slow, lean bulks with an emphasis on performance, you'll successfully achieve the art of bulking slow and cutting fast, and ultimately, you'll see the fastest changes in your physique in the shortest period of time this way, and continue making steady progress for so many years to come as a natural. Make no mistake, it will take a few cycles of this to get to an elite level physique, but I promise that's a lot better than fucking 7 years of barely any gains like me, or like many people that are still making these classic mistakes. Trying to go too fast is quite literally the slow way around, because instead of doing a proper cut and bulk cycle in 1 to 2 years and achieving a crazy transformation, you'll spend 2 years in a vicious cycle of dirty bulks and massive cuts, i.e. bulking fast and cutting slow, until you realize, fuck, I don't look all that much better. I guess let's just do this the slow and steady way. So hopefully now you understand better why we want to bulk slow and cut fast, and just exactly what that means, what it takes, what order to do it in, and you will see the best gains of your life. Any questions about this, let me know in the comments as always. And by the way, if you're ready to transform your physique the fastest and best way possible, check out the links in the description for everything you need, whether it's my free complete physique bundle, my monthly membership program, or direct one-on-one coaching with me. I hope that you found the video helpful. If you watched this far, drop a gains in the comment section, along with any other thoughts, questions, or things that you'd like to see next on the channel. Thanks for watching. As always, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. I'll catch you in the next one.